It's
Okay, I think we're recording.
okay.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Eric, if I may,
Yeah,
I will have to leave for now,
yep.
but hopefully I will be able to join later on afternoon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marek. Yeah.
But if you have any questions regarding technical stuff around Wizard or Fair Data Point, if you just place them in the document, I can go back to them and answer them there.
Yeah, super. We'll make sure they're in the notes from the hackathon.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks, Marek. Yep.
Thanks. And
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. So I'm going to move on to question 2. So there will be more identifier systems that we'll need to list in VODAN for sure. It's not just pearls. But I think this is certainly a major identifier system because of the fair data point that we're using.
But you can add others.
And we could add others, yeah. Yeah, and we can add others later, right? So I think if we can get through the list of questions today, it provides an opportunity to go back and ask other people, bring other people into this conversation, and we can expand our fair implementation profile over a couple iterations. Okay, question 2. What is the globally unique, persistent, resolvable identifier to use for data sets? And in this case, I think it's going to be, I think we can answer the same way. So I'm just putting in the acronym PEARL. It comes up with persistent uniform resource locator. That's good. I could have said, for example, DOI, and fair sharing would have come back with digital object identifier as well. But as far as I know, we're not using DOIs at the moment. So, oops, let me do that again. Yeah, okay, yeah, so that's good. So, so that's answering then this question of F1 for our metadata, for our data, and now this other question, question 3, is now moving to principle F2, which is asking for metadata schemas that we're using for findability. And what I can say here is, again, because we're using the fair data point, we are using, among other things, the data catalog vocabulary. And I'll say again, this is like, ECAT is used just as a point of reference for us. If we continue with our metadata for machine workshops and we develop additional metadata components, things that are found not in the core metadata of the fair data point, but could be other things that we want to say, we can link to those additional metadata components as well. Here, we can add another field and link to these other components. For example, it might be that we have a metadata for machine workshop where some researchers at a hospital use CDAR to compose a metadata template related to their work at that hospital. That CDAR template or that CDAR metadata schema can also be linked here, right? Because we'll have a unique identifier for that. And then we begin to build up in VODAN a bigger and bigger collection of metadata components that others will probably be able to reuse easier and easier. And they can say, well, you know, if I want my stuff to interoperate with VODAN, then I know what kind of metadata to use to ensure that that happens.
Do
So
you think that if you create a metadata schema in CEDAR, you get an identifier, but you should still also, because it's a standard, yeah, community standard,
yeah,
register it in a registry like Fair Sharing or not?
well, it's a good question. I think it certainly could be listed in Fair Sharing. It might also be that, for example, in the COVID program in the Netherlands, that we will set up a database or a repository of metadata components for metadata for machine workshops in general. And yeah,
but this has a consequence. So then in that, so it will be then also like a function like a registry too.
it could. And
but then you need the matrix, the wizard people to include that registry instead of Fair Sharing, probably.
or in addition to, indeed. So, you know, I think Fair Sharing is a great way to go. For almost everything. So I'm very happy to reuse what Fair Sharing is providing. But I would also maybe then like to talk with them about creating a kind of like metadata for machine tag or something like that. So it would be easy to find in Fair Sharing all the metadata created from previous metadata for machine workshops, for example.
Yeah, and what we have also to say is, so if I know that I'm not only going to use Fair Sharing, but I'm also going to use something else,
yeah,
I have the opportunity before starting to answer each of these questions to say, I am looking for resources in different registries, and so not in August, yeah, but something to do in future.
yeah,
Say that I want to look up in this and this and this registry, because this is something that has to be pre-built or pre-organized. It's nothing that you can do in 1 or 2 minutes alone. You need the wizard people.
yep, indeed. And so what's nice about the COVID program is that we have some development reserved for the wizard guys and for metadata for machine workshop development. And so indeed we wanted to figure out, you know, what's going to be the best way forward for linking up these activities. Yeah. Okay.
Eric,
Yeah.
not you, but Flickenschild. What
Yeah.
do you think about this? Is it? Do you have any opinion about what it's going? Does it look like you expected, or?
Yeah, in a certain way, I'm very excited about this, because now this is hands-on for me. Now I can see how what you're struggling with, that you have to find your unique resource locator, that there is something like Fair Sharing where you could start. And if you have a good alternative, it's good. And it, in a way, yeah, you have to decide this as a community. So if you are with 5 African countries, and Netherlands and LUMC, well, we have to decide a common thing. What you often have within Europe, you have your own standards, your own registry. So I think it's very good to have this discussion in front, how you will create a community, because the African standards could be much more different than we use in Europe. I'm not sure about this, but I can see that this could be a point. And you always can go back to the fairsharing.org and said, okay, I can define here my unique identifier.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I understand till now what we are doing here, and that we are creating a metadata scheme, real hands-on with real registries we have to choose from. But you always can start with fair sharing for instance, your procedures, because that won't be machine readable at all from day one. I don't think many institutes will have them machine ready at the front.
Thank you.
Okay.
And maybe it's a question then also for Francesca or any of our African colleagues is, and so I'll start with Francesca. Does this make sense to you? Is it something that seems relevant at the moment, given the experiences we've had in VODAN Africa so far?
Hello, Eric. I think Francisca is currently unavailable.
Okay.
She will back shortly.
Okay, fine. We can come back then later. I'm looking at the clock, so it would be nice maybe to take our coffee break in a moment. But let me see if we can get through these next questions here, because I think we're almost done with findability. Question 4 is this question about the FAIR principle number 3, which is, what is the technology that links your persistent identifiers that you defined up here of your data to your metadata? And this is a case where I think FAIR sharing will not work for us. Ah, it does. So we have a FAIR data point here. If not, and then I don't know if this record is current or not, but we also have available to us, right? We have a specification for the FAIR data point. In fact, we might even want to include that just as a double check. And then there's an actual implementation at this Docker hub, right? You can actually download software for the FAIR data point.
Okay, so you would also use this box for adding additional information.
Well, indeed, Barbara. What I see here says add your resource description here. So I think given the way that question is phrased, I'm feeling like it's perfectly okay for me to comment on this resource description.
Yeah, but Christina, what do you think about it? It was originally thought as an alternative if you don't find in FAIR sharing, but would be used to add additional information, but this would not be machine readable, no?
And I think Christina is gone.
No, I'm here. I'm just.
Oh, you're back. Oh, okay. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah. So, indeed, Barbara, we don't mean by resource description. We don't actually mean that you should describe the thing you picked. We actually meant for you to, if you don't, if you don't have I think so. I'm a bit in confusion. Yeah, I think so, that we actually meant that
the phrase is wrong. We don't want a description. We want just that here you put in what you don't find in the FAIR sharing.
Yeah, right. That's what we wanted. So, but I see now that it can be that it's not completely. It could be understood as okay, and now describe the resource, right?
But I don't think that. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm hesitant because at the end we really want ones and zeros and not whole textual descriptions.
No, I agree. So I think that we should not describe we should not really have a what we decided was this: we should either allow for people to just point to a resource and then you're done, right? You shouldn't allow people to sort of blah blah around that. Although if you don't have a pointer to a resource, you would be allowed to create a nano publication where you can describe that. If it's not in FAIR sharing, then you would describe it. That's what we sort of decided. But I don't know, Eric, if you feel that we should allow for some more description, because if we generate nano publications, we can have like a free text description for things that we can allow people to enter as a sort of explanation. I mean, but we discussed this many times, and
yeah, and here we are discussing it again.
Yeah, but you know, it's okay, because I think we need to reach a decision, and
yeah. So how about this? So if you look in the drop down, right? Essentially, if you're looking in fair sharing and you don't see what you want, then you can get a then in a text box, you enter your resource IRI, and you give a text box description. Say a free text description. However, I can see now there might actually be a utility to also in the wizard having a text box for, I'll say, free text on the consideration or description. So for those of you who worked on the ontology of the fair implementation profile, you might remember that we have a thing called consideration. And when you choose a resource in the matrix, you choose one implementation over the other, that's a consideration, right? You have requirements, you have constraints. There's reasons why you choose one thing and not another. And we actually have an ontological concept for that. And we could even begin to.
Can I raise a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I raise a question? As an observer from this, I think when you are starting filling in these parameters.
Eric, your audio. Check your audio. Come back.
Okay. You don't hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Yeah.
Okay, it was unmuted, so. So an observation: if I'm going to use this fair matrix wizard, and the first time, I think not. You must create a field of understanding that everyone knows what you are asking for. So in a way, if you have 3A1, 3A2, but I've heard a lot of more opportunities. If you create a role bar that starts, for instance, with fair sharing, and at the end it ends with free text, you can fill in. So more. What I'm searching at, the first time you will search to a free text that will explain what you are doing here and will give a link to your community. So give direction. As soon as you know the fair sharing, you will fill that in. So in a way, I'm puzzling. You go through this wizard in more phases. The first phase, you are satisfied with the free text. And the second time, you would like to have machine readable. So we could distinguish machine readable and free text, and say that in all the chapters, because it's the common red thread between everything that you are discussing about to have a unique identifier, or you don't know yet. But you definitely will need a direction. So you will have free text. Is this a good observation, or am I talking rubbish?
I think it's a very interesting idea that, I think right now in the wizard, just out of, simplicity or, just out of the fact that we don't have a lot to work with and we're creating all this, we assumed that these considerations and this kind of exploration of choices that you might have is happening at the same time that you would be filling in this wizard to a machine readable level. but maybe it makes sense to split this process up. Maybe there's a whole engagement process with the stakeholder that has nothing to do with locating machine actionable links to things, but it's really just kind of this guided tour through the considerations and the options.
Exactly. It gets familiar, create awareness, and you do that with free text. So I would split it, and first I would ask only for first thoughts about this, and we'll feed that in the free text. And in the second round, you get more the experts around the table. I would try to make decisions about this and to see, okay, shall we do this in fair sharing, or do we have something else that we already have in place? And that's another audience. And I think those two steps you will need.
Yeah.
Actually, Eric, I see now, I was looking at the questionnaire, and actually this resource description does belong to the answer. So, because if you want to add, don't you, or not? I'm getting confused now again.
It belongs to it. Yeah.
It belongs to it. So if you can't answer something from fair sharing, then you would, what would you do then? Then would you just type, you would just fill something else in that box.
Yep.
Right. So if you, Barbara, if you put in now, like if you put in something that's not in fair sharing, in the choose your answer from fair sharing, will it then I guess it won't find it, but it will still sort of save it?
No, it would not save anything because you cannot choose.
Okay, so then we would have to implement actually another one, answer box that is sort of this nano publication answer, right?
Yeah, the nano publication answer is something that we already discussed. Not sure where you can put it or should put it, and with Tobias it will be hard now, and also from Wizard cannot answer it how to organize it. But this was just the text information to say, okay, it should be added somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could place like a placeholder answer, meaning that, okay, here is where we want the nano publication answer to be, and I am sure that they can figure out how to do it.
But what Eric Flickenschild mentioned is that we need 2 rounds. I find this really interesting because working with the NV-Fair communities, it's what happened at the end. We had 2 or 3 runs because the first time I didn't get really good answers, and we had to come back a second time. And if this is really needed, we could also foresee it in the workflow that you first try to get how do you say, that you try to understand what the questioner needs from you, and you write the first thoughts about it, and then you find out, we need also other registries, not only fair sharing, and in the second round you make the machine readable version of it. We could think about it.
So you know what I see happening here, Barbara and Christina, to the degree that we want to maybe take what we know right now and put it into the handbook, right? To create a handbook on this. I think these issues that we're describing, as Barbara is very good at kind of bringing up, the technical blocks at each of these stages here. I think we could certainly take this conversation and start translating it into just a narrative in the handbook. Like, maybe we separated out already that there's 2 phases. And in phase 1, we phrase the questions not in one-liners, but we can actually phrase them at the paragraph level and really describe all these other nuances and issues and other things that are going on.
Yeah, there are of course general aspects from this that goes to every principle, But well, in the Netherlands, when you fill in your taxes, you can go the next to a help, a small text box, and that will explain a lot. Because the text is very pointed to that kind of question. Is there in this matrix wizard, is there room for it, or how did you handle it?
No, so one of the really nice things about the wizard environment is that, in fact, we can embed little icons here. Yeah. That when you hover over them, or if you click on them, you get arbitrarily much information as you like.
Often 80% of the answers, more frequently asked questions, you exactly know, oh, this is the purpose, and that will be very helpful.
Yeah.
You must know that we didn't expect that it is already used, so it's why we didn't add a lot of explanations. It was just for us at the first stage to play around, but it's for sure that we have to add more hints here, more explanations.
Yeah, absolutely. A quick question for Barbara and Christina. I have been commandeering this text field as a kind of comment. Is it okay if I do this, or would you prefer me to leave these blank?
But today it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
But it was not originally thought. But I think it really needs something like adding extra information, but probably in 2 runs. As we said, we need really a clean machine readable one and a human readable one. Probably. Yeah.
Well,
I know that, Eric, we also talked about it at a certain point, that we would have the FIP, but then we would also have a document describing the FIP and the decisions being made.
In fact,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we could also really use the wizard for it. Yeah, we can. Why not? But then I think it should be a parallel one.
Yep. So just so everybody knows, there is a ontology. I think, is it this one? That's behind the matrix. And we're not going to see that one. Okay. Hang on.
I just want to say we are 20 minutes over.
over our coffee break. Yes. Okay.
And nothing is done very quickly here because each principle needs a lot of attention. I know that.
Right. Okay. So, but I think the next 2 questions here go pretty quickly, or at least I'm not sure we have easy answers for these, so we may have to come back to them anyways. But then at least we finish findability, and then we can take a short break. F4 question, or principle F4 is, in which searchable resource are your metadata records indexed? And then we have the comparable question for data sets. And this is a question, some repositories will have a search engine of some sort built into that repository. Others may be using Google, relying entirely on Google to index things. I think what could largely be the case for us is that we have a fair data point registry, right? I can show you that. Here's a fair data point registry. And these are all the fair data points that have actively called home. These fair data points are unreachable. These are somehow invalid. And sometimes things come up that we don't know. But here are the fair data points that we know and we see calling home to us. So, one idea would be to put this in here.
So you shouldn't be. Sorry.
Oh yeah, go on.
No, yeah, I was just thinking, how is it? So it's actually it's a fair data point that's indexing fair data points. So it's mainly it is exposable to the web, sort of.
Well, let's just say, Christina, that here's a registry of the fair data points. What Luis would like to do going forward is to use this registry as a way to begin indexing the metadata on these fair data points. And then indeed, so long as the data is also available, we could even go in and index the data sets themselves. And then you create a very powerful search engine. So I think he's using like Elasticsearch or something, a very powerful search capability over these fair data points.
So you see this as a top level catalog of all fair data points.
Indeed, indeed. And it's, you know, it's really nothing fancy. It's just that there was a call home function, and every fair data point lets this registry know that it is up and running. And then any other functions like indexing, search, whatever, needs to be developed now. So maybe I move a little bit too quickly here to say that this is my, you know, this is going to be searchable now, but I'm a little bit tempted to put the home.fairdatapoint.org in here as an example of how we can.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we, I mean, this touches upon the needs, right? So we say, okay, this would need a sort of description to it. So we would say, you know, this is in work in progress, this is the status, and yeah, and where to put that, if you want to put that in a sort of resource description added to it, or a consideration, or how you want it, that's, yeah, just need to make a decision, but it's really clear that we should put, there should be room for that somehow.
Yeah. Also that this is my future choice, no? So it's not there yet, but I will use this. Yeah, so that's already in my plan, data management plan or something, you know?
Because I think Barbara and Christina, you've seen in your experience working with the SFREs or working with NREFAIR that this answer comes up a lot. Like, it's not here yet, but soon it will be, and then I really want to use it.
Yeah.
And what I also want to say, it's not totally clear to me if you can put in 5A1 this link, because I normally you should just be able to put in answer from fair sharing, but I'm not totally sure about it. We have to ask Marek when he comes back.
Maybe we can check. So if you just save it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see if it stays there, but probably it stays.
Yes, you need to save, press, I think.
Oh yeah, up here, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then I was thinking, if you put like create document, what is it? Yeah, does it you know, right up in the
like the summary report, or
no,
up there
on the top right.
Yeah,
just create document, and then you could export. You know, so yeah, just do a PDF, for example, and then you can just create. Yeah.
Take a look at that. Okay, and then let me switch screens because we're going to go on coffee break anyways.
And do you find it there?
Yeah. So this is then the beginning of a FIP. We can call this a FIP for VODAN or something. And here's a general information about the community, and then for findability, we have.
So it was before that we are looking. Okay, it's there.
Yeah, it's saving it. So I don't know what it will look like in the actual JSON, and if you wanna, do it, but it will save it at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but this was also not clear to me. So important to know and also to describe this. If you don't find it, you can also put any other identifier here.
Yeah.
Which makes it a bit more flexible,
Yeah.
And if you don't have any identifier, in that case, just write the name in the other box.
So Barbara, I wrote in the identifier here, and then here you're saying we would write in the name of that or something.
Yeah, but then we have to, it's something that we have to think how to deal with it. It was thought differently, but I understood the necessity to have a extra box also.
No, indeed. So maybe just one last comment. If we had NanoBench here, if we could publish a nano publication, then I would be able to publish a complete nano publication saying that this resource is used by VODAN for search and indexing. And it would have an identifier. And it would be a kind of, it would be registered without a central registration service. And we could always have it linked into fair sharing later on.
Yeah, but the nice thing here, you would just put in the identifier, and everything else is linked to in the NanoBank publication. So all explanation, because then you can also add a comment, I think, if you allow that in the template. Whereas here, it is not really machine readable at the end, no?
Well, indeed. But what we could do in the wizard is, whatever this nano publication schema would be, so whatever we want to capture in the nano publication, we could provide like separate text boxes here, right? Or we could partition out. We could almost profile a mini fair sharing profile here, saying, oh, what's the resource link? What's its name?
Yeah, it would be perfect if it would be totally embedded here and you don't have to
exactly
everything. So, but you type it in here, but it will go into the nano publication automatically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and this.
Yes. So everybody, shall we take a 10-minute break and come back here at 12:20?
It is already 12:15, so it's not.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 12:25.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good. Then I'll see you at 12:25. Hello, everybody. I'm back.
I'm also here.
I'm back too. See you.
Okay, great.
I'm also back.
Everyone has their coffee, I hope.
I'm ordering a pizza, so I'm also eating, if you don't mind. I just wanted to ask also the others if they could say something as feedback from Africa.
Yes, I'm here, Francisca, I'm here.
Yes, Francesca, maybe you have a comment then on what you see here today.
Well, it's so far so good. I was one that created the VODAN questionnaire. As you can see on,
yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to follow, yes. But I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity to fully do this at the VODAN Africa webinar, like for us.
Yeah, so so we should think about how best and when, I think, to deploy this idea in VODAN Africa. Because again, you know, we were talking about like this, like who are the stakeholders here, and I think I think we should think carefully about the process by which we initiate this, and then how we get increasingly larger numbers of people involved, because it's just very complicated at the beginning. It's very technical. There's a lot of moving parts here, so we should, I think, be careful just to be efficient in how we do this. And I you know, there's another decision here that will be made eventually, which is there's a VODAN implementation network. There's a VODAN Africa project. You know, they're similar but different. There's a similar project at the LUMC now. There's the COVID program coming up in the Netherlands. So there's lots of different potential stakeholders here. And, you know, if they design their own fair implementation profile, there should be some consideration about what others are doing in the space to make sure that there's an alignment. And if the alignment is almost 100% complete, then why not just reuse the same fair implementation profile from the others? So we should think about, you know, does VODAN Africa want their own fair implementation profile? And if so, you know, how does it compare to the VODAN implementation network, which might compare to, you know, what's going on at the LUMC versus the COVID project as a whole, et cetera.
Well, Eric, the whole idea was that we would start with VODAN Africa and LUMC. That will be the first. So, in a way, I think in the fair matrix wizard, I'm very curious about the fact that African standards will be different from European standards. But perhaps that's not. What we could do is have one workshop with each other and look to each other what we are doing, and not splitting the whole thing. But the first, in my opinion, the first step is to connect the fair data points we now have already in place that Louis presented this day, the served ones, the Netherlands ones, and the African ones, and to connect them in a way, to demonstrate them parallel. So that will need, for instance, a common fair implementation profile. So that would ask for to do things together.
Yep, indeed. And you know, just it's kind of silly the way it happened, but we refer to these early projects in VODAN Africa and Zone MV. Let me see. We've been calling that Project A all along. Excuse me. So so indeed, why don't we say that this is a fair implementation profile for VODAN Project A, which would include the African and the LUMC components. And by the time we get a proof of concept showing interconnected fair data points between the Dutch and say Kampala International University, then yeah, that would be following a common implementation profile. Good.
Well, my expectation is that there will be not much difference. There will be some standards that will be different, but I think 90% of what we fill in here will be applicable to African countries and the Netherlands. But that's an estimation.
Yeah, you know, and it really has to do with the level of detail that we take this. You know, if we both decide on a particular fair data point instance, and we create that and we configure it the same way, yeah, that may be essentially everything. And then there may be catalogs in there that then tend to follow work that is specific to VODAN Africa versus work specific to LUMC. And then maybe that's where we begin to see the divergence in the profiles.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So I'm going to move on. So again, we will continue now until 13:45, so about an hour and 15 minutes. And let's see if we can get through, what is it, 14 questions between now and then. We'll see how far we can get. Accessibility. And so the first question here is about this principle A1.1. Which standardized communication protocol are you using for your metadata records? And this is going to be for almost anybody using the internet, the World Wide Web protocols, HTTP. But the problem is, how do we get a canonical link to HTTP? And I'm not sure Fair Sharing is going to offer it for us. So with this, Eric, this would be hypertext transmission protocol, is that right?
Yeah. This is not secure, not HTTPS. It's all metadata. So
yeah,
it definitely is HTTPS. Okay.
I wonder if it's not much more than that. For example, all APIs for applications are also protocols.
Yeah. So certainly for querying the fair data point, you know, or let's say we can put GET calls on the fair data point, right? We can use HTTP to link to a fair data point, but we can also do this through an API. And, you know, we could download data from FTP, whatever is the case. So should I just, for the moment then, should I just say hypertext hypertext markup language? That's not it.
No, I know. I remember that. What's her name? In she didn't try. Yeah, we couldn't find something for HTTP last time. That was one of the things in fair sharing. Julianne,
yeah.
She mentioned that there was no. Yeah, there is nothing for HTTP that, you know, that we could really use.
Yeah. So
see what she did put in.
So I think this would be the technical name if we had it. But let me go to
This is the case where we have to use any other identifier.
So Barbara, hang on one second. I am looking at the moment, I'll put this in the Zoom channel. I'm at Wikidata. And Wikidata has, in fact, a an entry on hypertext transfer protocol. So would it be an idea to use the link here from Wikidata?
I think that's an excellent suggestion. I'm just wondering, is it HTTP or is it HTTPS?
That's a good question.
We also have a Wikidata for HTTPS. I would say that it's HTTPS, right?
Yeah, hang on. The hypertext transfer protocol to support TLS encryption. So I could say this, and I could say that.
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, I think for most of us, especially those of us more on the data side of things, this is probably the protocol that we will be using because we're just taking advantage of ordinary internet capabilities. And I think we will say the same for data sets.
Yeah.
Okay. And then A 1.2, which authorization procedure are you using for your metadata record? Now, here's a question where there's authorization and authentication protocols out there. This is maybe a question that Eric is qualified to answer. You know, if we were to layer our fair data point with authorization capability, or if we were to layer catalogs or data sets with restrictions like this, you know,
yeah. Eric, in the Netherlands,
how do you envision this, right?
In the Netherlands, we have the SurfNet AAI skill. So there is, you have to be a member of the Surf community, and then you get access to all kinds of services within the Surf community. So that's, I don't know how that is in Africa, but that's how we do it in the Netherlands. So this is my first thought, that you have to be a member. You have to you have to have a proper email address from the institution, and B, it must be aligned with the national service, AAI service they have.
Yeah.
This is just my first thought.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, when there's authentication and authorization, yeah, there's going to be some agency out there, right, that does the authentication for us.
This forces that you are a member of a community called Surf.
Yeah.
And then you got all that access rights that are, well, attached to it.
Yeah. Understood. So in Africa, or let's say, like, you know, be specific, in the Kampala International University, there's probably a service operating on behalf of the university there that could be used if they wanted it.
Yeah, they should be involved because they are a party in it. They can do services for all the universities. You don't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
You need a provider for this.
A question for Barbara and Christina. What if we don't have any particular authorization procedure in mind? Can we answer like none?
It makes sense because there are also really totally open systems. Not none, but with, yeah, or empty.
Yeah.
I'm quiet because I'm thinking, I think none is not a good answer. Maybe it should be, yeah,
not specified, maybe?
defined somewhere, like Yeah.
Or
all metadata records are open or something, or I know that we use, like, we ask for license also later, but maybe we can have some sort of no, not really a link here.
Can we say open? Is that like open access?
yeah, it should be an option here, no? To just use open access, but then here you should just add another box where you can tick that. If you don't have any procedure, then you can click that.
I did find open access in Wikidata.
Yeah, but you can then imagine that you are doing it, but I'm not sure if you don't provide this as an option that people will find it.
Well, indeed. So indeed. So I'm just filling it in because I feel like I want to fill something in.
Yeah.
But you know, if we go back to here, Barbara, you just mentioned like having a tick box, right, for open data and metadata. And this should probably come out, like you say, when we get to the licensing. It should be pretty clear.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not the same thing, but it should, yeah, it is sort of related, of course.
Yeah.
But I'm really not, yeah, I'm really not an expert on these like authentication stuff. That's a bit on the edge of what I know, what you should sort of, yeah, what you should have put there.
Well, I think it's really, for me, you know, thinking about the fair data point. So KIU set up their fair data point as a more general fair data point. It's not necessarily limited to VODAN. However, they will have catalogs in there that are VODAN related, and they could have catalogs in there with sensitive patient information in there.
Yeah.
So those catalogs or data sets may have levels of restricted access that have, in some cases, authorization and authentication behind it. So, you know, when we answer for the VODAN community, it's really, you know, some data elements will be free and open, other data elements will be restricted. But when they are restricted, we should know, okay, well, what's the process then of validating access?
Yeah, I put in an alternative identifier to this because the open access that you chose was sort of more related to what we usually mean by access to literature.
Yeah.
Definition, and then this is the link to open access and the Wikidata that I put into the chat is like type of infrastructure.
Okay.
So maybe that is more what we would like then, if we would not no, not that one.
The other one.
In the next 3. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one. Okay.
That's, I mean, that's fine for now. We can do that, I guess.
And I think it depends really how we exploit this information at the end. Also, to have a fingerprint, we need to establish rules how to use this information, and we know that for A1.2 there might be the answer open, and it's another answer than the others, you know.
Yeah.
So up to you, up to us, how we reuse this information at the end to visualize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always said that it would be a link to an authentication protocol because we were saying OAuth of Edugain, Shibboleth, these sort of things. And this is actually, this is something that we always say we should talk to other people about. So I don't know if other people on this call have a strong opinion. Otherwise, we can also, put something here and then have this as a continuous discussion.
Yeah, perhaps comment on this. I think you're right, Christine. It's more or less theoretical to say all metadata from fair data points are open, so you can access them without an access protocol. It's just an HTTP, and you get your information about your metadata. That's the principle for, I think, for all data points. But as soon as you will see the fair data point itself, it gives you more information than that. And I think an institution wants to give a license for this. Are that only doctors? Is it only a surf community? Is it outside? That is a discussion at itself. So immediately you will start with licensing, and immediately you will start to ask, what will you do? And in that case, we can in Europe, we know what kind of access protocols we have because they are standardized. I think they are worldwide standardized, but I'm not sure about this. So this is more or less a discussion between Africa and Europe. Are we going for the same access protocol standards? If you use them, because this is the thing you have to define. The other thing is well, it's always applicable. That metadata is always accessible.
Yeah, and you know, what's nice is that if you, as we build up examples of fair implementation profiles, then you can probably also ask to see what have other people answered for this, and you know, what's the most commonly used link here, and that can also be a kind of guide to know what the rest of the community is doing as to how you might want to do it. So hopefully make it easier to work through this process. Yeah. Okay, I'm looking now at question 4 here, A1.2, which authorization procedure? And I think it's going to be, again, it's kind of like we can answer it maybe with open access again. Would people be comfortable with that?
No, open.
Yeah,
open access for medical data. You're now talking about the data sets.
Well, true. So we have to, indeed. So maybe we have to, we look to LUMC or we look to KIU for authorization procedures here.
Well, on which level do you mean? Because if you're living on a technical level, that's technology dependent, which you're doing. Yeah. And above that, you have the European Open Science Cloud standards. I presume there are frameworks that will. I must look them up, but there must be frameworks that are more or less a directive in this way to use the kind of standard. So we can look this up to European Science Cloud.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I need to make a correction here. Sorry.
But I wouldn't call that open because that will give confusion.
Yeah, understood. I can put, you know, a placeholder here because we don't have an answer, I think.
No, this is the first round. We have to look up some things.
Yeah. So I will say, like, consult local institution, IT department, or IT policy.
possible also to fill that out later? Yes. So you have now not a complete one, and you can go back to that and complete later.
Yeah.
Is it?
I can give you a link in the chat because I found it with the European Science Cloud. There is already material available. This could be a starting point.
Okay, it's in the chat. Yeah.
Yes, it's in the chat.
So, but this question is still crucial to know. So it's possible to complete also in a second round. So if you don't have the information yet, you can consult somebody and go back.
So
Yeah,
how
that's
should
right.
how should I answer this, Barbara? At the moment, then.
No, first, I'm not totally sure if the wizard allows this.
Yeah.
That's the first question. But I think so. Christina, do you know? Christina?
Yes, sorry.
If it is possible to not fill it out and then save it, and you come back later and you can fill it out later. Is
Yes.
it possible?
Yeah.
That's, so it could also be remain empty with a box, yeah, that we say this has to be clarified. So
Yeah.
Consult somebody. So it's not the right box at the moment, but use it, yeah, because
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Very nice. And then lastly, here we have which metadata longevity plan do you use? And there's kind of an interesting trick here. So Principle A 1.2 asks for the fact that your metadata should be persistent, even if your data sets should be one day deleted or go missing. And it's just recognizing that metadata is really important. It should be seen as a kind of publication. And if your data sets go missing, that you probably need to update your metadata with like a tombstone setting. Like, hey, this data was here, but it's no longer here. So don't try to look for it because it's really been deleted. So that can be very helpful. But then it implies that someone's made a decision about how long that metadata is going to really be there. And to just say, well, it'll be there forever is not really an answer. What we need is to know, at some level, what's the policy behind metadata longevity? And, at some point, that decision might be made on the basis of, well, we have so much money in the bank that we can afford to maintain our metadata for 5 years or 10 years or 500 years. But we need an explicit policy statement on that. And at the moment, you could look for on the web and probably find policy statements like this for metadata. But working with Tobias, yeah, so the NanoPub server is down. We created a nano publication for this. And what I could do is link to the persistence policy NanoPub. So what Tobias and I were able to do was to create a very simple nano publication that says our metadata, my community metadata lasts for X years. And that nano publication has a unique identifier. When the server network isn't down, it's available all the time, but it's down right now. And so we can use a nano publication as a solution here. So I'll also leave this blank at the moment, but I can say we should link to the persistence policy NanoPub. And I could just go here and grab the link. Copy the link. So I'm just going to put that in here. You can see it's a long, unique identifier, so it's really a pretty genuine IRI. And then I would say save.
Marek is not here yet.
I don't think he's back.
May I say something to accessibility?
Yes.
Accessibility has a principle that, how do I say, a parent principle, and it's A1. And under A1, you have A11 and A12.
Yeah.
So this, just to make this here explicit, there are lots of discussion if A1 is a principle per se, or if this is detailed, this information which is under A1 is detailed under A11 and A12. So we, in this questionnaire, we are just tackling the lowest level of principles. So we are not talking about the A1. We are going directly to the sub-level. Because, and this is right, that's what I really tried to find out, it's really right, because you cover all aspects that are mentioned in the parent principles.
Yeah. And
important to say, because this pops up always, this question.
Yeah, so just so people can follow along a little bit, I will very quickly swap screens to what Barbara is talking about. So here's the FAIR principles, right? And we just went through the Fs and we just went through the As, but you can see that principle, there's principle A1 and there's principle A2. And there's two sub-principles under A1. And so just so you're not confused, what we're doing in the questionnaire and in the wizard is we're just answering principle A1.1 and A1.2. We don't really need to address the high-level principle A1. And likewise, it's the same with the R principles. There's kind of this high-level R1, and then there's these three sub-principles. But we don't need to really address this R1. We just want to address R1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Yeah.
So this means also that we don't have 15, but we have 13 principles.
Yeah, it does. And it's nice because it kind of
12, sorry.
Yeah, and it reduces the number of like questions as well. It's kind of nice.
No, 13 are, yeah, because 2 are as parent ones. Yeah, I think it's important to know.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so what's nice, somehow we're getting a complete checkbox here, even though I thought I left some of these blank. But that's okay, I guess. So I left that blank, but it's saying, okay, right. Moving on to interoperability, which is the hardest principle. Yeah, Barbara.
You said that for the A2, yeah, we will use nano publications. It could also be that for the R3 use publication, nano publications, because fair data point is a good answer here for VODAN, but there are not so many using something like that. The next option would be FDO, but we don't see so many other possibilities or other resources we can link to. Could be that we are reusing this possibility of nano publications also for F3 if you don't find it. That's what I.
Yeah, I think nano publications is a pretty good option here. So we live in a world right now that's not fair in general. And although there's lots of things you can do to make yourself more fair, or there's lots of best practices we can begin to implement, in the end, fair data will move on some kind of infrastructure. and that infrastructure isn't really there yet. You know, the fair data point is an example of some infrastructure. The FDO is another, the fair digital object approach is another infrastructure approach, but is, you know, even less well developed, I would say, than the fair data point. Nano publications are a pretty self-contained publishing platform, and it's pretty machine readable. So nano publications are already remarkably fair, but they're just awfully tiny, right? It's hard to represent all of your semantic data in nano publications. So indeed, there's different options available, but not a lot yet at the infrastructure level.
Yeah, may I comment on that, Eric?
Yeah.
I think this is the distinction between a fair data point and a fair data station, a fair data gateway, and a fair data portal. So what we know is what we are now doing is the elementary thing. We are placing a fair data station, but the whole aspect of what we call the personal help train involves all those matters. So in front, we have to know what is our ambition if we fill in this fair implementation profile.
Yeah, indeed. So
you have to define the scope. That's what my point is.
Yep. And you could very well have an internal system at a company or an organization that handles things in a very fair manner.
I think the first step is that we do that it's only available for as data within the organization, and that you can find it through a catalog, as we did before in the findable principles.
Yeah.
This is the definition. You can broaden the scope or you cannot.
Well, and I think if I just rephrase your approach, it's not so much findable within the organization, if I'm thinking like a hospital, but it's more like it's findable within this community called VODAN Africa Project A or something like that.
Yeah, and in terms of COVID-19, it must be worldwide findable.
Yeah, indeed. And you know, I think we'll see a process by which a lot of different stakeholders are now doing interoperability things for COVID, and we have to initiate a process of convergence on these worldwide efforts.
Agree, yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at interoperability now, and there's 6 questions, I think, split between data and metadata, because there's 3 principles and they're split now between one for metadata, the other for data. And so I1 is asking for the knowledge representation languages that allow machine interoperation for your metadata. And again, I think hang on. Well, so let's say if I just go to Wikidata and I ask for like RDF.
You can find it in fair sharing.
Oh, can I, is it not in fair sharing?
Yeah, I think you can resource
okay.
I don't know, RDF or resource.
Yeah.
Data.
Resource description framework. Beautiful. Okay.
And the interesting thing is I had a long discussion yesterday with Markus Stocker because he interprets this as not correct. He says, but the language itself doesn't bring any knowledge. Yeah, but it is the syntax. Yeah, you need a language to formulate it. And for me, it's really RDF or OWL or SCOS or whatever. Yeah, you don't, that's it, no? What it is asking.
Exactly. So it's, you know, we just need to know that it's basically a standard, right, by which you will communicate semantic information.
Yeah, but the question here is also, it's about data and metadata. And are both really in RDF? Yeah, in VODAN it should be, no? At the
Well,
end, yeah.
so I'm thinking for like VODAN case report forms. This was the project,
Yeah.
you know, and indeed we have a very nicely represented case report form in full-blown RDF.
Yeah, because that's very seldom, you know, that in the normal world is that you don't have this for data.
Indeed, indeed.
For metadata sometimes, but for data it's very seldom that you encounter this. Yeah.
Indeed. So it's, you know, there's really no reason why we can't have machine actionable metadata, but for when you get down to the data sets, you know, it's just a matter of finding the time and energy and money to verify all the way down inside your data sets itself.
Sorry, and for a NetCDF would not be a format that we could use here, because somehow it is interpretable, but I'm not sure.
Sorry, Barbara, what do you?
NetCDF, do you know this format, NetCDF?
I don't know that, no.
Yeah, you don't know it. Okay, that's used in ecology, but it's another story. Okay.
Okay. But yeah, for the ecologists, then yeah, that would be something to add, I think.
Maybe to mention also this which vocabularies do you use for your metadata records, that we decided to change that into which vocabularies do you use to annotate your metadata.
Yeah.
But that is so that yeah, we just to say that is something that is not in the questionnaire now, but yeah, that we need to change.
Yeah, just a question. Yeah, but the resource.
Yeah, resource is the same. Yeah.
But the data vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people also mix a little bit metadata standard and vocabulary. But here we really look up for vocabularies, no?
Well, I think I don't know if there's a strong distinction here between vocabularies and ontologies.
We have a question later, which is about this: which models or schemas do you use for your metadata records and your data sets? Maybe that's what you mean, Barbara.
No, I was at the I2 level, and there very often you see as answers not thesaurus or ontology used here as a language, as a vocabulary, but just the metadata scheme. But here it's not a metadata scheme, it's really the vocabulary you use to annotate. Therefore, we said we had to change the question, to make it. Yeah. So which question are you now?
Yeah, so so I'm looking at, hang on one second here. Let me see, I'll try and get this one done. So I'm looking at I2, question or principle I2, which is asking for vocabularies. And the fair data point gives us data catalog. So I put that there. The case report form is using the NCI thesaurus and this other resource, this hang on, I'll get here. This is the taxonomy database of the U.S. National Center for Biotechnology and Information.
But would that not be in the next thing where we ask to annotate, to encode the data, or is it not?
Well, I'm just trying to answer, you know, which vocabularies.
Yeah, but the next question is also about vocabularies, but for data sets. So
yes,
being encoding data. That's
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely so this we'll say this is for the fair data point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, my mistake. Yep. So so let me go here. Yeah. that looks good. And I'll just say it's from, we inherit this from the CRF, right? And then also here,
What is this wiki reference about?
it's here. It's a reference to the NCI or to the taxonomy database.
Because it is not in fair sharing yet.
It's not, I couldn't find it.
Okay. But it would also be okay to, if there's a GitHub link, to use that. Or
Yeah,
not?
I don't know if there is one. I think GitHub is is also useful. And also, you know, in the fair data point, you know, this is also drawing on, if you look at the metadata schema in the fair data point, it's also drawing on a Dublin core and some other things. So let me do this. If I say, there's a metadata specification for the fair data point. Just put that in this window here. So there's RDF. Well, there's RDF. There's Dublin core, DC terms, the fair data point ontology, and re3 data, for example. So let's just see if I go back to here, I'll see is BC terms. Yeah, I guess this would be it here. I'll say from, and I'll add another one for re3 data. We'll see if re3 data is made it into fair sharing. So it looks like it. That's nice.
But re3 data is a vocabulary? Isn't that the registry? No, what is re3 data?
Well, yeah, I think it's giving us this thing called institution start date, last update, data catalog. Yeah.
Yeah, re3 data is indeed it's like fair sharing a bit, you know. So, but it's it's registering registries, but they also have their own sort of standard for how they list things in this the metadata about their listing.
Yeah.
So they also, you see that below there is it's a re3data.org schema.
It's a schema, but not a language, not a vocabulary. It's a schema. It's a metadata schema.
So would that schema be borrowing from a vocabulary?
Yeah, should I think I don't know. I have to look at what do they put into country? What do they expect as resulting values?
Yeah, it's a good point, Barbara. I'm not sure if you can actually. I haven't looked at it I haven't looked at it in detail. So it might be that they.
It has own metadata schema, fine, but it's not to be put into I2.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me remove it from here. Let me remove it from here. And what we can say is that the vocabularies we use for metadata are in fact data catalog and Dublin core.
Yeah, metadata terms, that's fine. Yeah.
And then for the data sets, we have the thesaurus from NCI and this other thing, this National Center for Biotech. Okay, I think it's good enough for the moment. Then if I move to the last set of questions for interoperability, it's asking which models, schemas do you use for metadata records? And so.
And why is it asking this? Because
Yes.
this is my interpretation of what I can read under this I3. It says that it is required to provide qualified references. And qualified reference is more than just saying it is associated with something. You have really to describe or specify the type of relationship between your data or metadata and other resources. And this is, for me, the indication that you have something like a conceptual model, or normally, which ends up in an ontology, where you can define these qualified associations.
Yep, indeed. So in just so everyone's on the same page, everything here is linked data. So there's this relationship between subject, predicates, and objects. So we say, a data set is linked to some metadata, for example. And that link can be very, very direct, but it might not have a lot of qualification behind it. It might not be easy to interpret what the link is. And one way to make this link more interpretable is to build up a metadata, or to build up a data model around it, or a schema, so that everyone will know, the computer will know, oh yeah, here's the link I follow to get to the metadata. And so this is we are interpreting I3 more and more as a kind of like your data model. Which data model are you following? Which schema are you following to embed all these elements? And then it's a question of, can we record these schema or data models in fair sharing? And I think the answer is yes, because we can treat them as standards. So why not? But here we have, for the metadata, I would say, Barbara, Christina, that we would answer with the fair data point here.
But is there a schema?
So how about, how about this? How about the metadata spec, or fair data point spec?
Yeah.
Is that useful?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know so much about the spec, but of this I have to look at it, but it seems like, yeah. But I would also like to hear the others if they agree with our interpretation of I3. Eric or others. Eric, do you?
Well, I'm not a data scientist, so but what I understand is that we have to be clear. I have to explain this to the community. So I have to ask them things. But the first thing I have to do is the metadata basics explaining that you distinguish your data element, your rules according to a scheme. And we are asking something here, and I'm puzzling at which point, when are we satisfied? I think we are satisfied if we have a scheme, and that would be the abstract level of we are aiming at. Did I understand this well? I'm still puzzling with a lot of things. So this is not my field of expertise.
Well, go on.
Yeah. It's not enough to say fair data point. You have to say fair data point specification. Normally, this is something apart.
Well, the problem, Barbara, is that this is an autocomplete by fair sharing.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if this is exactly the same.
No, then I think you should.
Because does this link to the specification itself? I'm not sure.
It looks like it's just going to the GitHub landing page where the spec link could be there. But here, if I just put in the link to the spec, it comes back as, you know, from fair sharing as fair data point.
Yeah.
So I could try and leave it like this without selecting the fair sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Once we write the guidelines, yeah, or the handbook, then we will make it very clear. This is the spec and this is the technology. I'm not sure. So I'm also not totally sure because I have not done a lot with the FDD yet. So but it's not the same.
Indeed. And I think, you know, and again, I'm thinking of like metadata for machine workshops here. You know, we're going to sit down with COVID researchers and help them to develop metadata templates that are specific to their experiments and to their data. And those CDAR templates might be additional things that we add here, right? Under these metadata data models here. Could be.
Yeah, and I think what we are discussing now is diverging a little bit here around the handbook, is that we should allow for other implementations than the fair data point spec, right? So we can have other things, and so when we write the handbook, we need to be really specific in what we mean. But yeah, it's a work in progress, and we can just go so far as we can, and when we have the first sort of real working with researchers on defining these, I guess we can add them. Yeah.
What I have expected is that there is an ontology for the WHO electronic case report forms and not only a metadata scheme. But I'm not sure if this, I thought this has also been created, an ontology on this. How the things are really related to each other, not only the components of not only the elements of a metadata scheme are defined.
Well, the way I see it, Barbara, is that the fair data point, and we're pointing to that spec right here in 5A1, the fair data point is the metadata schema, right? It's DCAT. It's 4 layers of metadata where everything's kind of self-referencing and interlinked. So I would say the fair data point is a great answer for metadata. And for the data set, I'm pointing to this conceptual model of the WHO form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, but I'm not totally sure. So that's fine for the data. I'm not totally sure then for the fair data point specification. If this is just a metadata scheme, then here we are wrong in I3. Then you have already the answer under F2. So it could be that you don't have any model because a model says more than a metadata scheme.
Okay.
I'm not sure right now because I don't know the spec. I have to look at them.
Yeah. And then we have to define in the handbook, you know, what we mean by a scheme versus a model.
Yeah.
Make that very clear.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to save this.
So for the first.
And so I think we have a bunch of answers here, which are pretty good. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the last set of questions here, reusability. And we say, okay, number 1, and again, these are all tied to the FAIR principles, right? But we say, which license do you use for your metadata records? And it's a good question.
This you can find.
Well, so I think it's whatever license the fair data point is under, right?
Yeah, but the options, you should find the options of the different licenses here in fair sharing.
Yeah, I think fair sharing is, it doesn't, there was something that Julianne also found out, it doesn't really list licenses, but maybe Wikidata does again.
Yeah, but I think we should have a link to a license here. Or let's say if I go to the fair data point here, where do I find licenses on GitHub?
Oh, yeah, it's in the, it's in the top. You get to get up, and then there should be, usually there is a link somewhere here. There, on the right side, there is about, and then README, and then the MIT license. A bit low, a bit lower, 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 to the right.
Yes.
At most to the right. You see MIT license?
Yes, here we go. So, and then the only question would be, what's the canonical reference to this? And this I could put into fair sharing, maybe, right?
Yeah. Yep, I don't think you will get it. But you do find it on Wikidata.
Okay. Yeah. So I can put this license here.
Yeah.
And I can say,
You're right, there's nothing in fair sharing. I thought there was.
No, I remember from the discussion with Julianne that there wasn't.
and
because I guess a license is neither a standard, a database, or a, yeah, it could be a policy.
You cannot be claiming your right at all times. Mama bá mi sọ yí pé timetable yẹn
you might need to mute your microphone. So I guess I have capability to mute. Is that right?
Àbígbà tí mo tiẹ̀ lọ àbáwọn èèyàn tiẹ̀ kúrò bí tán ṣe meeting lọ lọ́wọ́ ni.
Okay. Please mute your microphones if you can. Thank you. Yeah, so hang on, everyone. Let me do this. I'm going to go to the fair data point we set up yesterday. And I'm going to go to the case report forms. And I'm going to go to the data sets within them. And these are going to have a license here, but we can't see it. We can see it in the RDF. So there's a license that was assigned yesterday, and it's just kind of a default license. So let me grab that license. Okay. Okay, hang on. So I'm going to go to here. One moment, everyone. I will have this license. Okay, so I'll go back to the fair data point. So for our data sets, we were using this. Oh, yeah. Hang on. So that was a broken link as well. Yeah, sorry about this. I'm getting these links are, yeah, here's what we wanted. So here's the link to we were using for our data sets. And that's fine for now. It could be subject to change, especially because this could be restricted data, right?
If it is not in fair sharing and we have all of them, we can also use this as pre-links, so to drop down. And we have to ask Pete if he thinks that these licenses should be part or not of fair sharing. If not, we just have them here in the drop-down menu.
Yeah, there's also Wikidata entry for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure which one I would then prefer. I think if it is...
I guess Wikidata is more persistent than Creative Commons itself, but right?
Not sure, yeah. I'm not the person who can answer this.
Say that again, Christina?
Yeah, I would say that Wikidata and the identifier you get from Wikidata would be the more persistent one than Creative Commons URL.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know, I think I would prefer that one, but
yeah. Well, I think Wikidata would certainly make the whole thing more machine actionable, right?
Yes.
It's
I pasted it into the chat, so it's it's the last link.
Okay, you put it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the last link.
Okay, let me get to the chat. Okay, super. Yeah, it's the 408 link.
Yeah.
So let me do this. Let me put that there, and I'll take this. Just put it here. Yeah. And, you know, like I say, this is certainly going to change because you're not going to have a CC by 4.0 to expose your patient case report forms.
No. So I'm also envisioning now from this exercise that we should probably ask the wizard people to also include a link with the Wikidata API.
Yeah. Yeah. We use Wikidata more and more, I guess. Yeah. Well, so let's say, you know, what are the resources? Wikidata, and then it's maybe also the NanoPub server network.
Yeah.
Right. So we can build up a distributed set of resource locations. Okay.
Sorry, you also said there will be a fair data registry, isn't it? And this
again,
registry, the fair data point registry, that could also be a registry to register everything in a persistent way or not. Not sure.
Well, I mean, I guess that's, you know, you could have fair data points that are registries of things. But I think they're mainly used to give instances of things.
And for identifiers. that are persistent, looked up there.
Yeah, if they contain resources that you are using to make your data fair, you know, if you're reusing resources from a fair data point, then I think they are eligible to be reused here. I'm looking at question 3, and this would be for FAIR Principle R 1.2, which is asking, which metadata schema are you using to describe the provenance metadata records? So I think we should be careful with the wording here. I think what this is asking for is provenance metadata, not the provenance of your metadata records. Correct?
Yeah, I am. This is also one of the questions that we've been debating a lot, right? So
it's just the wording that might be a bit different here. So to make it clear, it's not about the provenance of your metadata record, it's the provenance elements used to describe your metadata records.
yes.
So
what we did, yeah, that's true.
So as I interpret it, as I interpret the FAIR principle, it's saying, you know, you ran an experiment in the laboratory and you recorded some methods behind it, and those methods are part of the provenance of your data, right? You know, I did these procedures in this order on this day and time, and these are my, you know, now these are the data that result, but this method and this description of what I did is the provenance metadata behind it.
yeah. But normally what you will end up here is with prof ontology or some similar model used for that. But very often it is already included in other metadata standards with some provenance fields.
Indeed. So I
had... Sorry.
We all have something to comment here. I had a conversation yesterday with a guy named Wilbert van Praunhaus, a Dutch guy who happens to be living in the United States, by the way. And Wilbert runs a program called MIDAS, which is an infectious disease modeling group in the US. It's an NIH-funded project. And he's building machine actionable metadata for infectious diseases. And he pointed me to this project Tycho, which is using CSV files to compile data. But there's a bunch of metadata apparently built into this that this project Tycho is defining. I can imagine that even in VODAN, we may end up repurposing a lot of this stuff from Project Tycho. I haven't looked at it myself, so I can't say for sure. But from the conversation with Wilbert yesterday, it sounded like, yeah, we really need to connect metadata from machine workshops and from Project Tycho. And that would be an example, I think, of something that I would put here, you know, is a link to those metadata, the provenance type metadata.
Yeah, I know that we have discussed this many times. Like, do we really want do we want the prof itself as an answer or not? And then I know I've been looking at the data intelligence paper, and then we also talk about the prof template. So it's really more about like, okay, using different vocabularies. What sort of provenance information do you need to state, right?
Exactly. I think this is really data level stuff. This isn't schemas and technical stuff. This is asking the data scientist, you know, what do you need to record for your domain so that your colleagues can follow you later on? That's how I interpret all the R principles are really, you know, asking about the data, or, you know, the use case, the application, the domain.
I'm not so sure, because so I really worked a lot on provenance, and I think if you say prof templates is just a way to, you would then still use prof.
Yes.
Templates just describe, and it doesn't say anything, prof template, because you wouldn't have to say, I'm using this prof template, but it's just reorganizing your data to be able to track the provenance information according to prof.
Yeah, so I really think that we haven't really like, I don't know if we can answer this right now, because I don't think we defined this for VODAN yet. So, I mean, I see what you mean, Barbara, that you can, a prof template is still just a selection of elements that you can use, right? But we need to decide which one.
Exactly.
The prof template is something we have we have implemented something like that. It's just describing the workflow of your data, how you come from the source data to your published data, and the prof template helps you to organize it. But what you get out is prof information according to provenance ontology. So you don't pick out specific elements of that. You use everything from that, what is necessary.
Okay.
It's just how you organize your data. Flow.
Okay, so I have, I'll put this link here. I don't know if it's what we want, but
it
right.
is not really what we want.
But at least it's indicating, it's pointing to what we're talking about, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
You would find prof in fair sharing for sure. The prof.
But why is it not coming up then?
Here.
The ontology.
No, that data model. You can take the data model. The provenance. It was below. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Good.
And but yeah, it's a bit a fussy question because it doesn't.
Because I guess, you know what, usually I'm thinking like when we are telling our researchers what do they need to tell about their experience, their experiment, for the others to know, to at least sort of you know, the doubling core is the basic, right? That is what people need to know, but then there can be extra elements, and we just didn't really, yeah, that's specific to the actual experiment or thing that you develop as well, I think, because it can be domain specific things that you need to include. Let me.
Yeah, so for me, as far as I understand the whole topic is, at the metadata level, it would be enough to just use decapped or doubling core because there you just describe at metadata level where you have it, who was on. But if you go there, then you would need something like prof to track all the actions you are doing with your data. And at the end, you have an extra provenance file that you can machine read and query across. So looking at what we have here, I think it's more question 4 that asks for prof, and question 3 that asks for metadata scheme, which has some extra metadata about provenance included. That's what I think now aloud.
So I see it as, prov is exactly what is being asked for, right? It's provenance type metadata. So using prov, I think you can never really go wrong. But indeed, there will be, experiments or procedures or data that's captured in very particular ways that the researcher may want to record that doesn't easily fit into the prov schema, maybe. Or maybe they, they've already created metadata templates in other contexts that they want to reuse again. Then I think it's, we would add, in addition to the prov data model, oh, here's a bunch of CDAR templates that I made a long time ago, and here's a bunch of metadata descriptions that I borrowed from another community. And so you could build up a cloud of provenance type metadata that's based on many different sources, I think. Does that make sense?
Sort of makes sense. But go back to talk to people like Luc Moreau and so on. I'm not so sure.
Well, what I might be wanting to do anyways is to leave this blank, because I think it's a question for the VODAN community. They're going to have to start deciding on what they want for these case report forms, right? Maybe we want to know who is the person conducting the interview to collect these data, and maybe we want to know, what time of day they were collecting these data. I don't know. There may be circumstances around the actual data collection that we want to record that isn't in the case report form. That's
really interesting. This needs an extra workshop to define which provenance information do we want. Prof says just how you collect it. So what exactly is the entities you have to look at, but at which level you record this is a community decision.
Absolutely. And this is what I would say is the domain of the metadata for machine workshop.
Half a day for sure.
Well,
just
maybe many days, but indeed, answering this question, I would leave this question blank for now, because I think that's a much larger discussion for this group.
Yeah, but I think really it's easier to answer 3 than 4. Because 3 is not, it's only about metadata, and the metadata is a summary about what you are doing with your data. Whereas if you go at the data level, this is much more difficult to answer, because or we are just saying we are using prof, but we are not saying at which level we are using prof. Yeah. The question is not saying a lot about how this is implemented.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part. Yeah. Because everybody says, we are using prof, but it can be implemented in so different ways that it makes sense or totally nothing, no sense at all.
Well, so again, too, the fair implementation profile isn't necessarily a deep description of your data assets. It's really just so the computer knows what are the resources that we're using here. What do I need to look for to recognize what's going on? So I think answering prov even at kind of a vague high level is already a huge advance for the computer.
And now we are at the end, but
yeah,
interesting that for others probably, that we are not including the last sub-principle, which is 1.3, R 1.3.
And you explain why.
Yes. And then I will go to my next meeting. Indeed, if you look at the FAIR principles, the very last principle is R 1.3. And it is asking for the fact that you reuse, as much as possible, domain relevant community standards in your FAIR data. And Mark Wilkinson, who is one of the principal developers of FAIR, has built an evaluator system and even an automated evaluator system of how fair is your data. And he could never figure out how to answer this last question. And I think one possible answer, how do we conform to community standards? I think the answer to that is, in fact, the FAIR implementation profile. What we're doing now by answering these whatever many questions is we are laying down the standards of our community, of our domain relevant community standards. And so the very last principle of the FAIR principles could be answered, your implementation of that last principle is in fact building this FAIR implementation profile and linking to it. And that's why we don't have the question on this wizard, because by getting this far, you've already completed the last principle. And we'll see how far that goes. Any questions? Yeah, any questions or discussion? I will probably, for myself, leave in about 2 minutes from here, from the hackathon.
If you do a JSON, then it's
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
also more machine readable, of course, but yeah, a PDF people can read.
Yep. So. Okay, so how do I get back to, can I go here? Yeah. So I'll create a document in JSON.
Yeah. And if people ask you for the, yeah, that's the machine actionable part. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree that we also need like a more formal schema to describe a FAIR implementation profile. We didn't really get to that now, but maybe we can get to that when we develop the handbook.
Yeah, indeed. And, it depends how we want to go, right? That here's the JSON file. So for our African colleagues, everything we just did right now, we captured in machine actionable format here. And it looks horrible to us, but to the computer, it's very nice.
Yeah, and we are still working on the, the nano publication export.
Yeah, indeed.
But okay.
Indeed. So these FAIR implementation profiles could take the form of this PDF. It could take the form of this JSON file. It could take the form of a more standardized RDF schema that we could create. It could take the form of, a bunch of nano publications that are just kind of contained in some way. So all these things are possible.
Eric,
yeah.
Very much. Take care. You have to also rest a little bit.
Yes, we all need to rest a little bit. This is great, guys. I really appreciate everybody's time and energy, and thank you, Christina and Barbara, for helping us cut through the details of this. You guys are indispensable this whole thing. So thanks for taking the time. And I think it's really nice that, thank you, Christina, for starting the handbook. Indeed, this is something that I will try to work on a little bit before Friday. And I think this hackathon has helped us to start even defining what we want to put in this handbook and start capturing this stuff. And we have a rough, fair implementation profile that we can start circulating, at least to a small group in the VODAN community, to get some feedback. Any parting words, anybody? Any last comments here?
Yes, helpful to be here and present. It was very informative for me. You get a good feeling of the next step we are going to take and what kind of work still has to be done.
Very good, Eric. And I will also be, checking in with you yet this week about what it is I can do still in July before I go on holiday in August.
Okay, we have contact.
Yeah, very good. Okay, everyone. I will end the session here. But again, just to say thank you very much for all the energy today.
Yeah, thank you, Eric.
Okay, guys. And we'll be in touch. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.